something that was given. In order for a person to get misas bezdin, that means the Torah has to write lo saseh, a lo saseh. If the Torah did not tell you not to do it, the court will never kill somebody on a violation of a sin unless the violation of the sin was given when the Torah says don't do a certain thing. But if the Torah didn't tell us don't do a certain thing, a person was inactive, they will not get death from the court. Now, that's true when it comes to the court giving the death penalty. The Torah has to say, don't do this type of sin. When it comes to karet, does the person require a lo saseh to get karet? Does the Torah have to write the prohibition in a form of don't do this? No. The Gemara proved it from Pesach and Milah. Therefore, being that lo saseh is not an integral part of to get karet, so therefore, if the Torah, when the Torah writes lo saseh by the ones that are obligated karet, it's not coming for karet. So what is it coming for? Malchut. Therefore, Rabbi Akiva wanted to say, the Gemara wanted to say, good morning, Mr. Bitesh. Bitesh, it's always good to have you back. And I'm going to encourage you to encourage others to come, Mr. Bitesh. You can tell them that you do it, and the same way you do it, other people could do it too. You know, there's a Gemara that says that different people obligate different people. Hillel, the Gemara says, was a poor man. And even though he was very poor, he learned Torah. He didn't let his poverty get in his way. Yosef HaTzadik was a very handsome man. He had the Yetzer Hara, but he didn't let the Yetzer Hara get in his way. He overtook the Yetzer Hara. There's another person was a rich man. Even though he was rich, he didn't let it get in his way. So, Mr. Bitesh, you come here to the class, you got to say, I'm here. I'm obligating everybody else to come. We want other people to come too. Okay. Getting back to our Gemara. So that's what the Gemara said. The Gemara said that the Gemara wanted to perhaps suggest that the reason why Rabbi Akiva says there is malkut, lashes, by a violation that carries karet, is because the lo saseh, when Torah says don't do it, don't sleep with one sister, that lo saseh is coming for malkut. It's not coming to tell us karet. Because why is it not coming to tell us karet? Because you don't need a lo saseh for karet. You don't need the Torah to tell you don't sleep with one sister in order to get karet. The Torah could just say, if a person sleeps with one sister, they get karet, without telling us don't do it. You could infer you can't do it. If the Torah will say if you sleep with your sister, someone sleeps with their sister, get karet, you know you can't do it. But the Torah did not give it to you in a statement of don't do it. Morning, Dr. Navid. The Torah does not need to tell you don't do it. The Torah could just tell you the punishment, or the Torah could tell you in some other language. But the fact that the Torah says don't do it, so therefore that don't do it, which we'll call the lo saseh, is coming to teach us lashes. That's what Rabbi Akiva says. That's what the explanation of Rabbi Akiva. So now we understand why Rabbi Akiva says there is lashes, there's malchut, to someone who violates chayvei kvisot. Someone who does a sin that carries a karet. Why is there lashes? Why don't we say that the lo saseh is coming to tell us the karet and not coming to tell us lashes? Because we don't need the lo saseh to tell us karet. Morning, Mr. Haber. Yeah, Mr. Haber's back. We got to roll out the red carpet, Mr. Haber. Welcome back. Mr. Haber, it's been a long time. And we're so happy to have you back. Morning, everybody. Morning, Dr. Navid. Okay. Mr. Haber, I was telling Mr. Bitesh that, we have to encourage more people to come to the class. that we need help. We want more, Mr. Haber. We want you to encourage more people to come, Mr. Haber. Okay. Okay. So the Gemara, just to bring everybody up to date, the Gemara now, we're going to now, the Gemara is going to say the following answer. We're now on, we are on 13b. Number 4 in the art scroll, 13b. Mr. Haber, just to bring you up to date, the Gemara brings a dispute between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Ishmael. What is the dispute between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Ishmael? The dispute is if somebody did a sin that carries with it the karet penalty. Karet is to be cut off from the next world. The court down here does not kill the person for this type of sin. God takes care of the guy, and karet means to cut off. The word get, when a person gets, if a person ever gets divorced, Rahman al-Islam, it's called a get krisu. It's the language of karet. It's a cutoff. Get is a cutoff. It's a cutoff between the husband and the wife. And the karet is a cutoff in the next world. They lose the next world. It's one of the worst, a very terrible punishment. There's certain sins that carry with that punishment. Sleeping with one's sister, we'll use as an example. Certain inappropriate relationships, immoral relationships carry with it karet. Then there are certain sins that carry with it death penalty, which is the highest level of punishment is death penalty. You know, if you do on the ladder, there's lashes is a lower level penalty for certain sins. Karet is like a higher level, next level, let's say, one higher, cut off from the next world. And then there is also the third level is death for the poor. Okay, those are the 3 different levels we'll identify as punishments. The question is the middle level of karet. Does something that gets karet, does it also get lashes or not? That's a matter of dispute also. And Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Ishmael both say the sins that carry karet also get lashes. They get lashes. And we'll see in the Gemara later on that lashes has the ability to remove the karet. But we'll see more of that later on. But there is lashes. But Rabbi Akiva says that there's lashes. In that case, there's something that carries the karet penalty, but there's no lashes if something carries with it the death penalty. Even if we're going to warn the guy, let's say we didn't warn him the warning that the person's going to get the death penalty. We didn't tell him, let's say desecrating the Shabbat carries with the death penalty. So you didn't warn him that he'll get the death penalty. What did you warn him? What did you say to him? You're going to get lashes for desecrating the Shabbat. Will we give him lashes for desecrating the Shabbat? He's not going to kill the guy because he wasn't warned that he's going to get killed. Will he get lashes? That's the question in the Gemara. Rabbi Yishmael says he'll get lashes. You warn him for lashes, he'll get lashes. Rabbi Akiva says he won't get lashes. And the Gemara wants to understand, why does Rabbi Akiva say something that carries the death penalty does not get lashes, something that carries the karet penalty will get lashes? That's what the Gemara wants to understand. And the Gemara said that Rabbi Akiva holds that when the Torah says don't desecrate the Shabbat, for example, it comes to death penalty, that means the Torah is giving the death penalty. That is the penalty. That is what the Torah is telling you. Don't do it because it comes with the death penalty. But the Torah is not, when the Torah says don't desecrate the Shabbat, it's not coming to teach us there's lashes. It's the punishment the Torah is giving for such a sin is what? Death, not lashes. So therefore, even if you warn the guy about lashes, we're not going to give the guy lashes, because the Torah did not give the punishment of lashes in this situation. But the Torah says, don't desecrate the Shabbat, don't murder, and the punishment for such a sin is death. There's no punishment of lashes here on the table. But when it comes to karet, the Gemara says, when the Torah says, don't do this sin that carries karet, the don't do of the Torah is not coming to tell us karet. Because the Gemara asks, maybe the don't do is tell you, if you do it, you'll get karet. But the Torah is not coming to tell us lashes. The Torah is just telling you, don't do this sin, because if you do it, there's karet. So where do we know that if you do it, there will also be lashes? And the Gemara says, because when it comes to karet, you don't need to tell me don't do it. You could just tell me you know what? If a person does it, he gets punished. When it comes to court death by the court, the Torah has to have, it's a two-step process of the Torah. Torah has to identify the sin and tell you, don't do this sin. And then the Torah also has to tell you, and if you do the sin, you'll get this punishment. The Torah has to identify, has to call out. There has to be what we call a hasara, a warning of the Torah. Don't do the sin. The Torah will never give a guy a death penalty unless the Torah first says you can't do the, identifies the sin, tells you don't do the sin, that carries with don't do this type of sin, which is called the lo saseh. Don't murder. The Torah will not just say if you murder someone, you get killed for murdering. No, that's only a punishment. Torah identifies the punishment. Torah must identify the sin itself. Don't do it. Mr. Bitesh, is that clear? But when it comes to karet, the Torah doesn't have to identify it by saying it's prohibited to do this act. The Torah can just tell you, if you do this act, you get this punishment. And of course, you know you can't do the act. But I told you, if you do it, you get the punishment. But it doesn't tell you don't do it. And therefore, it doesn't tell you don't do it. So if the Torah does tell you don't do it, so why does the Torah tell you don't do it? The don't do it is teaching us lessons. That's what Rabbi Akiva wants to say. The don't do by karet is teaching lessons. The don't do by capital punishment is teaching us capital punishment. That's what the Gemara says. Mr. Safdie, is it clear at this point? Right. And Rabbi Yishmael says that the fact that the Torah tells us there's capital punishment by telling us don't do it, it still has the law of all the other don't do's of the Torah. And the don't do's of the Torah carries with it lashes. What? The Gedera Sheva was just identifying the circumstance where the lashes would take place. Meaning, from that Gemara earlier, it's telling us that if you violate what Torah says don't do, you get lashes. That's what it's only teaching us. We have to look more back directly at that Gemara to analyze it more. But getting back to this Gemara over here. So the Gemara says like this. Here's the new point that we're starting with today. Good morning, Morris. The Gemara says, the Dilma, 4 lines from the bottom. The Dilma ashara l'korban. Maybe the ashara, when the Torah tells us that you can't do this sin, that it carries with it the karet penalty, maybe the purpose of this lo saseh is not coming for lashes. Rather, to tell us that if you violated this unintentionally, you have to bring a korban. What is the rule? The rule is, let's say, I'll give you a classic example. Mechalel Shabbat. Someone desecrates the Shabbat unintentionally. He didn't know it was Shabbat. He forgot it was Shabbat, and he cooked something on Shabbat. Chas v'shalom. Or he didn't know. He didn't know. I didn't know I'm not allowed to cook on Shabbat. And then when he found out, so what do? We tell him you have to go to the Beit HaMikdash. You have to bring a korban chatat. You have to bring a sin offering. You should have known. You should have been educated. You should have been on top of your game. Now, where do we find this korban? What type of sin has korban? The type of sin is not every sin gets the korban. Meaning a guy goes ahead and he ate not kosher unintentionally. He does not bring a korban. Third is not obligated korban because eating not kosher carries with it lashes. It's a lower level punishment, and therefore a lower level punishment unintentionally does not get a korban. But once you reach that middle level, a sin that if it's done intentionally gets karet, that type of sin, if it's done unintentionally, brings a korban. Is that clear? It has to be a type of sin that carries the karet in order for, if you do it unintentionally, to bring a korban. Now, we have in the karet family, I don't know if it's a nice thing to refer to as karet family. In the category of karet, we have different types of sins that carry karet. 99% of the karet sin, the Torah said, don't do this thing, and you were proactive and you did something, and that therefore that incurs a karet penalty. But there's two exceptions. When you were inactive, then your person would get karet for being inactive. What was the case? He didn't get Pesach. He didn't bring a korban Pesach when he was supposed to, and he didn't do the Brit Milah. He's supposed to give himself. He became bar mitzvah. He's supposed to give himself a Brit Milah. The Rambam says if he died, he went through life without making sure that he got a circumcision, that's when he will get the karet penalty. He'll be cut off from the next world upon his death, that he did not, during his lifetime, make sure to get a circumcision. Okay? Now, what if a guy went ahead and, well, let's use the example of Korban Pesach. This year, let's say he was with Eretz Yisrael, Beit HaMikdash, he didn't bring the Korban Pesach. And if he didn't bring it on Pesach Rishon, you can make it up, Pesach Sheni, but he didn't bring it at all. So now the question is, does he have to bring a korban? Does he have to bring a korban? He missed out on this mitzvah of Korban Pesach. What happened? He forgot about. He didn't know he was about Tshuva. He was brought up in that religious home. He went through a Pesach. He didn't know anything about it. Then he became religious. Now, does he have to bring a korban for not bring a korban Pesach? So the answer is no. The Gemara is understanding why not. But the Torah never told us the mitzvah of Korban Pesach in a language of a lo saseh. Torah didn't say, don't go without bringing a Korban Pesach. It was an assay. It's a mitzvah. The Torah says, I want you to go ahead and bring a Korban Pesach. Well, let's say circumcision. The Torah says, I want you to circumcise yourself. Being that that's the case, he doesn't bring a Korban Pesach. But a guy who went ahead and he slept with his sister, he didn't know that he's not allowed to sleep with his sister, and he slept with his sister, that guy will bring a korban for violating that unintentionally. So now, why does this guy bring a korban for this sin? Why does they both get karet? The guy who didn't bring a korban Pesach gets karet. The guy who sleeps with his sister gets karet. If they did it intentionally, they get cut off from the next row. First, doesn't get cut off from the next row by sinning unintentionally. But when he does the sin unintentionally, in this case, he brings a korban. In this case, he doesn't bring a korban. Why not? They both get karet if they did it intentionally. Everybody with me? Everyone's following? Yes. One difference. What is the difference? Very good. Very good. Very good. So the Gemara is thinking at this point, because it's all about the lo saseh. One of them, the Torah says, don't do it. So that don't do it, don't sleep with your sister, that creates the obligation of a korban, a offering, if you do it unintentionally. But Pesach Hamila, where it doesn't say in a language of don't do, therefore there's no obligation of a korban. So the Gemara is thinking the obligation of korban is dependent on what Yaron said. Did the Torah say a lo saseh, don't do it or not? If that's the case, so the lo saseh is not coming to tell us malchut, lashes. The lo saseh of the is coming to tell us, teach us the law of korban. So the Gemara's question is, how does Rabbi Akiva use the lo saseh of karet, the case of karet? He says it's coming to teach us lashes. There is lashes. The Torah's lo saseh is teaching us lashes. It shouldn't be teaching us lashes. It's coming to teach us what? Korban. That's what the Gemara is saying. Maybe the whole purpose of the lo saseh is not coming to teach us lashes. And therefore, the Gemara is challenging, why should Rabbi Akiva give lashes in a person who violated a sin that carries karet? We should say, no, the lo saseh is not teaching us lashes. It's teaching us korban. Just like Rabbi Akiva went on record. When the Torah says a case of capital punishment, Rabbi Akiva says the lo saseh says don't do it, is teaching us the capital punishment. So here maybe the lo saseh is coming to teach us korban. And therefore, how do you know, Mr. Safdie, is that clear? How do you know to use the don't do of the Torah by cases of karet that is coming to teach us malchut? That's the Gemara's question. It's a very complicated, sophisticated, complex, but hopefully everyone gets it. What? Do we give him lashes? Right.
That you see that carry away, you're gonna get back in lot. But if you do visual gag, I can do my food. The company.
Very good. But the Gemara is saying you need the chiddush is you need to tell me that we're going to give him you have a source to give him lashes. Right? You got to show me you have a pasuk available to use that teaches us there's lashes in a case that carries with it karet in a certain circumstance that can carry karet. But if you're using the low saseh for something else, it's not available. It's not available to use it for lashes if maybe it's coming for something else. That's what the Gemara's question. If the low saseh is teaching us karban, then it's not available to teach us lashes. For karban. Exactly. We need a new pasuk to teach us lashes because we can't double dip. We're using the low saseh for karban. Yes, that's going to be. No, you don't get malchus. The Torah, there are many cases, depends on the situation. The Torah gives depending on a person's financial certain circumstances. Very good. Certain circumstances, the Torah talks about a poor person that they bring a bird. If they can't afford a bird, if they can't afford an animal, they'll bring a bird. If they can't afford a bird, you know what they'll bring? Flour. And you can't just remind yourself. I want to remind you how much you have to eat of a korban pesach. 1 ounce of meat. A korban pesach is many people joined together. It's a whole family joined together. You, your neighbors on one animal. You only need to eat 1 ounce, 1 kazayit. Now, of course, you need a whole animal in order to get to a kazayit, but you join together with a lot of people. No, we don't give punishment for someone who can't afford something. Court doesn't punish. We could see what we could do. What? Okay, so the question is, no, we will not punish the guy by lashes because he can't afford it. We have to figure it out. If there's no what the halacha is, what do you do if the guy can't afford it? Will the community give him?
Morning, Rabbi.
Good morning, Yosef Atzadik. The same way we give tzedakah to someone, we give a guy needs 4 cups of wine for Korban Pesach. We, the community, have to provide the 4 cups of wine for the guy from the charity. So we have to see what the halacha would say that in your situation, if someone can't afford it, what do we do for the guy? Yes, Mr. Batesh. Very good. The korban obligation to bringing an offering for something that would carry with it karet means if you violated the sin intentionally, then he would get karet. Unintentionally, he gets a korban. That means he will not get karet for such a sin unintentionally. Unintentionally, he will never get. The Torah never gives strong punishments. What's that? Just unintentionally, he has to bring a korban. He's not going to get killed from the. He might not have. Let's say he didn't know it was sister. The other case that would be a better case to say he didn't know it was sister. Just like a guy who doesn't know Shabbat and he violates Shabbat. He didn't know it was sister. He didn't know that his father was previously married, and half a sister, and half a sister is a sister. And it's the old country, little shtetl, little neighborhood, and everybody's marrying each other in the neighborhood. They don't go miles to marry. Don't go too many miles to find somebody. Okay.
What are you doing in this situation, Rabbi? Like you don't know, you married your half sister, you have kids. What then?
It's over. The marriage, the kid, the Torah doesn't want. It was a terrible mistake. They didn't know. They got it. The marriage, by the way, doesn't even take effect. meaning certain things need a divorce, certain sins, if a Kohen marries a divorcee, the marriage takes effect, it's a sinful marriage, and they need a divorce. But when a person does a sin that the marriage is such a like a level, he married, you can't marry someone else's wife. The marriage doesn't even take effect. You can't marry your sister. You could try to marry your sister today, therefore there won't be any need for get. There's no marriage. But they have to separate them and all that. Okay.
Even though he got married, there's no records that he was his sister.
But now they found out what happened, Yosef. They thought somebody's husband died at war, and World War II, and they thought he died, and then someone got married to the wife, and then the husband walks in. That's happened. And so it's over. The second marriage never took place. They never took effect, and they're forbidden. You can't marry.
But what happened if they have kids? What then?
Okay, the kids are mamzerim in that case. The kid's an illegitimate child. There's a great story of Moshe Feinstein. There's a story of Moshe Feinstein that a lady that after the war someone got married, and then the husband came back, and the husband came back after the war. Terrible story. And the husband came back. The first husband came back, and the wife said to Moshe that a certain rabbi in Europe permitted her to get remarried. And Moshe Feinstein says it can't be. It can't be that rabbi, you know the story? It can't be that rabbi, such a holy rabbi, would have said that you could get married and this will happen, that your husband would come back. Then she admitted, she cried, she admitted that really it was not true. She was making up a story that rabbi had allowed her to get remarried. She thought her husband passed away. She didn't do due diligence. She got remarried without the rabbi allowing her, and then the husband came back.
Yeah, but
we need serious witnesses. There's certain things that we need witnesses or other things. There was a whole big issue at 9/11. Avodah Yosef was very involved in figuring out what to do with the people in 9/11. And I know of a story, a certain person that he called and he instructed someone to give his wife a get. That if he doesn't come out, that he should give his wife a get because he was afraid they wouldn't find him. I think that was Mr. Bengelson or something. I forgot what his name was. You have to know. They have to know. How would they know the person's dead? They have to know the person's dead. Maybe he ran away somewhere. Maybe he got mentally disturbed and he ran away somewhere. No. How do you know 100%? That's the question. If two witnesses say the guy's dead, he doesn't need anything. No, right. Death permits the woman to marry someone else. Okay. So the Gemara says the following. 4 lines from the bottom. The Dilma Ashara le Korban. Maybe the warning is coming to teach us Korban. The Pesach Milah. And why does the Gemara say that? Because Pesach Milah, the mitzvah of Pesach, mitzvah Milah, the Lesbu Azara, there's no Azara, there's no Losas, the Torah didn't say don't do it, and Lo Mighty Korban, there's no Korban there. So if a guy goes ahead and does not bring a Korban Pesach, he doesn't have to bring, good morning, good to see you. If a guy doesn't bring a Korban Pesach, he doesn't have to bring a Korban. He doesn't have to bring a Korban if he unintentionally didn't bring a Korban Pesach. He doesn't have to bring a Korban Chatat for that. Why not? So the Gemara's understanding. Why? Because there's no lo saseh by Korban Pesach. The Torah did not describe the mitzvah in a fashion of don't do. The Torah only described it in a fashion of doing. Therefore, the Gemara is saying, by the cases that carry karet, where the Torah tells us don't do these sins, if you violate these sins, if you do it unintentionally, he'll have to bring a korban. So maybe that's what the Torah means by saying don't do these sins. Because if you do it unintentionally, you'll bring a korban. But it's not coming to teach us lashes. Malkut. That's what the Gemara is saying right now. Unintentionally, you'll get a korban. But it's because the Torah says don't do the sin, and you did it. So it happens to be you did it unintentionally, so you have to bring an offering. But it's not teaching us don't do it, and if you do it, there's lashes. It's not coming to teach us lashes. So therefore, how do you know, back to the drawing board, how does Rabbi Akiva know that there's lashes for cases that carry the koreh penalty? Maybe there's only korban for those situations. There's a korban, or that if you do it unintentionally. But there's no lashes if you did it intentionally. That's what the Gemara is asking.
How we know that it's only to see the stomach?
How does he know it's teaching us lashes? Because we know koreh. The Torah said that a person does the sin, the person sleeps with his sister, the Torah says he gets koreh. But we want to know the shogeg of koreh, a sin, that if it's done intentionally, you do it unintentionally. There is a korban. There's a korban. If you did the sin unintentionally, you have to bring a korban. The Gemara is thinking maybe the reason why you bring a korban is because the Torah spoke about not doing the sin. Allah says, don't do the sin. And you did it. Happy you did it unintentionally. You did it. You have to bring a korban. But we don't know that if you did this sin, that you get lashes. How do you know that the Torah is teaching you lashes? Maybe the Torah is just teaching you don't do this sin, because if you do this sin unintentionally, if you do it intentionally, there's koreh. Unintentionally, there's a korban. But how do we know intentionally there's lashes? That's what the Gemara wants to know. How does Rabbi Akiva, Morris, is it clear? How does Rabbi Akiva, where does Rabbi Akiva have a losas say teach us lashes? The same way Rabbi Akiva says, when the Torah says, don't desecrate the Shabbat. If you desecrate the Shabbat, the court's going to kill him. The Rabbi Akiva says that don't desecrate the Shabbat teaches us death penalty. It doesn't teach us lashes. It's not available for lashes. It's used for something else. So too, we should say that when Torah says don't sleep with one sister, that losas say is used to teach us korban, but it's not available to teach us lashes. That's the Gemara's question. The Gemara says, Hatam, 3 lines from the bottom. Hatam lav hainu taima. That's not the reason why it's not the korban is not because there is where Rashi says the reason why you don't bring a korban on Pesach and Milah is not because the Torah did not say a losas. It's not because of the lack of a losas over there, and then you have the Torah didn't say a don't over there, and the Torah says a don't over here. That's not the reason. Now look at we're going to read the Gemara and then we'll do the Rashi. Ella, yes. Right. But we don't bring we don't bring a korban for the guy who didn't bring the korban Pesach. Meaning he doesn't bring a korban chatat. The guy did not bring a korban Pesach. He went the 15th of Nisan. You're supposed to bring a korban Pesach. He didn't do it. No, he doesn't bring a chatat. The Gemara, why not? So the Gemara was thinking, why doesn't it bring a korban chatat? Because the Torah did not give a losas. The Torah didn't say don't do this sin. The Torah did not use it. There's no. Well, that right. The Gemara's changed now. We're going to see the Gemara change in a minute. But the Gemara is saying, the Gemara thought to say, by korban Pesach, the Torah never told us a don't do. Therefore, there's no korban chatat if you violate it unintentionally. But the koreh situation, Torah says don't do. Therefore, there is korban. And the Gemara says no. The whole Torah is compared to the case of Avodah Zarah. Meaning, if you want to know what type of case brings a korban, it has to be similar to the case of worshiping idols unintentionally. A person didn't know that I can't worship idols, let's say. He brought up in a not-religious home. He wasn't brought up in a religious family, and then he thought he thought he could worship idols. And that's the case. The Torah's case, the poster boy case, is avodah zarah. Worshiping idol unintentionally is the case of the Torah that carries with it, good morning, korban. Ma avodat kachavim sheva al taseh. Avodat kachavim is the case of sheva al taseh. What did the Torah say? Torah says, don't worship avodah zarah. And the guy went ahead and he worshipped avodah zarah. So therefore, the Torah, that's the type of case that gets korban, because you did an action. However, and therefore, af kol sheva al taseh. Therefore, anything that the Torah says, I want you to sit back, don't do an action, that gets, and if you went in and you did an action, you do not bring a what, and you bring a korban for doing this action that the Torah says don't do, and you did it unintentionally, you bring a korban. La'afuke hani, however, to exclude these, the kum v'aseh. This comes to exclude Pesach and Milah. Pesach and Milah, the Torah tells you to do an action. What did the Torah tell us by Pesach and Milah? I want you to be proactive. I want you to do something. I want you to give yourself a circumcision. If you're bar mitzvah and your father didn't give you a circumcision, got to get your circumcision. Or bring a korban Pesach. That's what the Torah said. And how did you violate it? By not doing anything. By sitting back and not bringing a korban Pesach. Therefore, you're not similar to the case of avodah zarah. Avodah zarah, the case was, how did you violate it? By, so it says, don't do it, and you went ahead and you did something. How did you, that's the case the Torah says you bring a korban chatat. However, Pesach and Milah, since the Torah says, I want you to do something, and you were inactive, you don't bring a korban. The only time you bring a korban chatat, you have to be similar to the violation of avodah zarah by being an actively against God. But if you were inactive against God, you just didn't bring the korban, you sat back and you were laying in your bed, not bringing the korban, you do not bring a korban chatat for such a thing. Therefore, what does the Gemara mean to say by this? The Gemara means to say, it's not the lo saseh. It's not that what causes the korban here and not korban here, because here there's a lo saseh and here there's no lo saseh. It's all about being similar to avodah zarah. Therefore, if we have a lo saseh by koreh, the reason why the Torah says don't do the sin of sleeping with one sister, and he did it, and now he went ahead, that lo saseh could teach us lashes. Why could it teach us lashes? Because it's not that we need that lo saseh to teach us korban. You don't need a lo saseh. You don't need to tell yourself, don't do something to get a korban. You know how you would know you bring a korban? Because as long as you're similar, without the Torah tells don't do this type of sin, you know you bring a korban if you're similar to avodah zarah. If the type of sin is similar to avodah zarah, you know you bring a korban. So the lo saseh is not teaching us korban. The whole Gemara's question was, maybe Mr. Safdie is clear, maybe the whole lo saseh is teaching us korban, and it's not available to teach us lashes. It's already being used for something. You can't double dip. Now the Gemara says, no, the lo saseh by things that carry the Torah penalty, the lo saseh is not teaching us korban. Korban we know from comparing it to avodah zarah. Anything that's similar to avodah zarah type of sin brings the korban. Avodah zarah sins are sins that are active. So therefore, any koreh sin that's active brings a korban. Sleeping with sister, he was active. Not bring a korban Pesach, inactive, you don't bring a korban. So why does the Torah tell us, don't do a lo saseh, don't sleep with one sister. You don't need a Torah tells don't sleep with one sister. You don't need a lo saseh. You would know karet without the lo, without that. So therefore, the Gemara said, the Torah tells us that it's available to teach us lashes. That's what the Gemara says. That's what the lo saseh, amazing Gemara, right? Very complicated. As long as in Yiddish they say you have to hold cup. You have to think. You have to keep the count. The whole thing in your mind. Then you got it clear. Okay. I want to wish everyone a beautiful day. It feels like we just began.
17.
Okay, we got to keep on. Mr. Haver, you came into a very.
Rabbi,
Yes.
so when the Gemara been written?
In Babylon.
Okay, so at that time, was make sense everything, but today we don't have.
Hold on one second, Yaron.
Come on, David, take your pants off. You don't take your shirt yet. Take your pants off
You know
now.
what I'm saying? Thank you very much, Yaron. Take it from him, please. Thank you very much. What did you say, Yosef? Sorry, Yosef.
I'm saying, the Gemara, was talking about all those mitzvot of the Bet HaMikdash, which
Right.
it's not really relevant for us today.
Yosef, Mehera Yibona Beit HaMikdash. We have to know about what's for, and then we have to know what type of sin it is to identify it and what to bring. There was a rabbi that wrote that when the Beit HaMikdash will be rebuilt, I'll bring a korban for a certain sin that he did.
And then we know when the constructions of the Bet HaMikdash will begin, then we can learn it. But why we not focusing on more relative things,
Yosef, first, you bring up a good point. Number one, there is a concept of learning laws that are practical. Yes, that's very ideal that people need to do. But you also have to know that the Beit HaMikdash is going to be rebuilt, hopefully soon. Good morning, Charles. Thank you very much, Yaron. The Beit HaMikdash is going to be rebuilt, and we need to know what we have to do. And even mitzvot that does have to do with us, let's say things that have to do with a Kohen. I'm not a Kohen. And things that have what they have to do in the Beit HaMikdash and processing the korbanot, we have a mitzvah of Talmud Torah. There's a mitzvah to learn Torah, to know everything. All the mitzvot, even things that have to do with us. What?
There's so much to know before that, you know what I mean?
Okay, that is a good point. But hopefully the more we learn, the more we'll be excited in the Gemara that we're learning. That we picked the Gemara morning. Yosef, have a good day. Morris, thank you so much. And like last year we learned brachot, which is the Gemara is a bit more practical. We learned brachot. So, but we try to do, Yosef, if you notice, I try to bring in things that are practical. I try to relate the Gemara to things that we could take out, certain ideas that are practical for us. Really, maybe you bring out a very good point, Yosef. Maybe when we talk about this Gemara, we have to talk about, even though there's no korbanot today for these sins, to recognize the seriousness of these sins and to help us in being strong and not to do any sins. When we hear about the seriousness of the sins, what it carries different punishments, whether it's korbanot or whether it's karet, or whether you should get a feeling and inspiration of appreciation how terrible it is to sin. Good morning, good to see you, Mr. Feldman. We should get an appreciation how terrible it is. Mr. Feldman, we hope we'll get you tomorrow.
David, let's go now.
Then get dressed.
Yosef, you hear what I'm saying, Yosef?
Yeah.
So you're right. We should really point out, it's a very good point. You have to remind me, if I don't focus on it, that we should think about how serious a sin is, what a sin could create. Let's say today, the sins that carry with it karet, being cut off in the next world, is very applicable. A person sleeps with a nidah. Someone's wife doesn't go to the mikveh, that's nidah. That's karet. That's a very serious sin that people need to know about, to learn about, to hear about. And the importance of a mikveh and all that. All right, Yosef, it's always a pleasure having you on, adding to the class with your beautiful, holy neshama and smile. And thank you very much. You had a beautiful Sukkot.
Yeah, amazing. We had a nice sukkah outside over here, and we went to the rabbi not too far from here. And I got to read the Maftir Yonah
Oh, wow. Were you in Tannersville or in Woodstock?
in Woodstock.
What's that? Okay, beautiful. Okay, you should always be reading the Torah. Your children should always be reading the Torah. And I want to wish you a great day, Yosef.
Thank you. Thank you.
All the best.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. Moshe